Hi, I'm Hosain, CTO for Aeris Communications, and today I'm going to talk to you about lowering the total cost of ownership of your M2M deployments and applications. There are 5 basic ways that you can accomplish this. At least these are the most important 5 ways, and I'll give you some more detail in a minute. But first and foremost, you need to set the pricing model for your business. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to expect from your M2M application deployment? And I'll touch a little bit more detail about that in a moment. Select the right network. You have a cellular network that you're going to select, and we need to figure out which one is best for your application, best for your needs. Plan your device deployments. Make sure that you take into account what you need to do to touch the device when it's out there and deployed, when you have many devices deployed. Troubleshooting. When you have a problem device, that's almost as important as having to deal with perfect operation. You need to fix the device, and we'll show you ways that you can achieve that. And of course, reduce your unnecessary transmissions, because if you can reduce the transmissions, the cost will go down. It's pretty straightforward. So let's dive in and talk about the various mechanisms that we have. First and foremost, pricing. Okay, this is a big deal. You're hoping to achieve a cost reduction or a revenue increase from your M2M application deployment, and if your costs are too high, then something's going to go awry, and you need to take that into account. For example, during manufacturing, you're probably going to want to do testing over the air, live. That means you need to provision your device. You need to make arrangements to be able to pay for that without having to worry about incurring a monthly charge. Once you have a device out in the field, it's okay to get a monthly charge when you're collecting revenue, but when you're in the manufacturing phase, when you're testing your devices, you don't want to be incurring a monthly charge. But you want to test them out live on the air to make sure they work properly. And that's a very important aspect of any M2M deployment. And we try to help you with those pricing problems that you might have to deal with. Automated billing. When a device is deployed, once it starts operation, once you're starting to get revenue from your application and your customers are providing and paying, you're providing services to them and your customers are paying for that service, you need to make sure that the billing of that device is activated at that point. And if you have a large number of deployments, you want to automate that. And that's very essential. That's very important for any M2M applications that you don't want to touch it if you can avoid it, not just the device, but also the billing aspect of that application that you're deploying. Variable use pricing. You may have some devices that only transmit a few megabytes a month. You may have some devices that transmit hundreds of megabytes a month within the same application, depending on the use. For small businesses, you might want to take into account that you want to have very carefully crafted rate plans for that particular device so that you don't get surprised by the fact that one device might be using more than it's expected and another device might be using less than expected. But you want to have a consistent cost, and you want to be able to control that cost, and you want to have the rate plans match the usage patterns of that particular device that you've deployed, the application that you've deployed. So make sure that the people that you select for your services can help you with that. Make sure that they can provide automated billing. Make sure they can provide you services before you really have deployed the device and are collecting revenue for yourself. Those are the 3 bullet points on the screen over there. Next, talk about the right network. Okay, this is a classic problem. Everyone asks us, can I use LTE? Should I use LTE? It's the latest buzzword in the cellular industry. Everyone tells you 4G is here now. Everyone can give you tons of data on 4G LTE, but do you really need it? Most M2M applications do not, and that's a very important point to be made here. In general, 2G CDMA applications are way sufficient for the vast majority of the M2M devices that are out there, and LTE is gross overkill today. But you may want to deploy it. But you've got to take that into account, though. There's a cost to switch. There's a cost to deploying an LTE application. The radios are substantially more expensive. They're still getting down the cost curve that already the 2G CDMA devices have been through. Even 3G CDMA as well as 3G HSPA, which are the 2 technologies that you might want to consider, are still substantially higher than 2G CDMA today. LTE doesn't fit your need. Don't necessarily select it unless you have a true need for the amount of data that LTE can provide to you. One of the other important points about deploying an application is doing a pre-launch review. Aeris believes fundamentally that through our experience with various customers, that there are things we can show you, there are things we can do to help you make sure that you have picked the right network, that you have optimized your use of that network, and that the cost of using that network doesn't impact your business model that you had selected in the first place. Okay, let's move on from selecting the network into planning. Device lifespan. Okay, let's assume that your application is going to be out there for a number of years. So you're going to be deploying many units, and you expect them to last 4, 5, 10 years in the market, in the field, and providing you the data gathering, the remote M2M application support that your device is intended to do. You have to plan for that. Make sure that you select the right product. Make sure that you select the right components. Make sure that you design your product to last that long. Now, I separate device lifespan from application lifecycle. Device lifespan is the amount of time that a given device stays out in the field. However, application lifecycle is how long do you expect to keep selling those devices and providing the kind of M2M support that your customers are looking for. There's a difference. You may have a 4-year device lifespan, but maybe you're selling your product for the next 10 years. You need to take that into account and plan for it. Finally, and most important in this particular slide, remote updates. You're going to have to make a change to your application at some point down the road. I can almost guarantee you that. Just about every one of our customers has wanted to make some kind of a change. Yes, you can do an in-factory change, you can change your design, you can change your manufacturing, but what about the devices out in the field? Plan for it. If you can accommodate being able to wirelessly change your application software and firmware in your devices once they're deployed in the field, that's a big deal. It can reduce the cost of touching the device. In many industries, trying to find the device, locate the device, have your customers bring it in, do all kinds of changes to the product is just too expensive. If you can design remote update capability in your devices up front, you're going to do a better job of getting your customers happier with changes that you can incorporate in your product down the road. Troubleshooting. Okay, let's say one of your devices goes awry. It happens. It's absolutely going to happen in just about every customer. How can you make sure that that doesn't impact the particular customer for which you've provided that device? Your perspective might be, I have a few 100,000 devices out there. One device is bad. It's not so bad. But that one customer who has that one device is 100% down. You need to be able to fix it. That's important. So what we do is we provide tools to try and get a good way of allowing you to discover what's wrong with your device. Now, I say crowdsourcing, and that's a very important aspect of what we're getting into today for troubleshooting. One of the classic things we've discovered when you have a problem with a given device out in the field is you don't know if it's a device or the network that's giving you a problem in that location. What we have done is develop tools to find out where your device is located and allow you on our portal to see what other devices are working just fine in that area. That allows you to say, aha, the network's okay, it must be my device. And you have made that big critical jump of saying, it's my device, I need to be able to go touch that device, fix it remotely, maybe get the customer to reset it, power cycle it, something, as opposed to worrying about the network calling us and saying, is the network working properly? That's a big step in making sure that you can recover from a bad problem quickly. Automated actions and usage alerts. These are tied together, really. Quite often, you might have a scenario where your device has a bug in it, perhaps, or under certain conditions, it transmits and runs away, and it's transmitting too much. You want to make sure that if your cost expectation and your transmission expectation is a certain amount of data and dollars per month, that you aren't exceeding that. You can set usage alerts. Be notified if a device falls outside that pattern. For example, if you're expecting a device to send, let's say 100 SMSs a month, and it's the 10th of the month, and all of a sudden it's already sent 75. You may want to know that so that you don't get an unexpected bill for that device. We provide that capability on our portal, so you can set up automated alerts and automated action. This is the important point. You may want to shut that device off, assuming it's not in a mission-critical application, before it exceeds what you're expecting out of it. And those automated actions are important. That they help you control your cost and ultimately provide a better product for your customer. Finally, let's talk about data transmissions. Selecting service is important. One of the things that Aeris has done is to make sure that we don't worry about which carrier your data is being sent on, which operator is being used for your data transmission. Because quite often you might find that a particular carrier in a particular market might not work as well as a second carrier in that market for a particular location. So we provide tools and methods for your device to decide which carrier it should use based on signal strength or other parameters that make sense for you to determine whether your transmissions are working properly or not. Very important. The second bullet point on the screen, I think, is perhaps the most important point I would make in this particular slide is the intelligent retry problem. And let me explain what I mean by the retry problem. Quite often, an M2M application will misbehave. It will send a transmission, not realize that it has successfully sent the transmission, or maybe it failed indeed. It'll retry. A few seconds later, half a minute later, something else went awry, it will retry again. And it will keep doing that over and over and over again. And what happens there is that you're creating a cost burden on yourself. You may be sending too many SMS transmissions. You may be sending too much packet data. Sometimes the device might not be waiting for an acknowledgement from the system that everything was hunky-dory, everything was fine, and the data was received, but it sends it again. You have to worry about having a back-off algorithm, implementing an intelligent retry mechanism that allows you and allows the device to decide, aha, this didn't succeed, and for whatever reason, I'm going to back off and wait a little while before I try again. And keep doing that in a more intelligent way so that you don't incur charges for transmissions that you didn't really expect. Finally, data encoding. Quite often we see people assuming that all of the information they gather at the remote device can be sent. Vending machine example, we had a customer who wanted to be able to take the actual temperature of the device and send it back periodically. Do you really need to do that? All you really need to know from a vending machine perspective, if you have to worry about a problem or servicing, is whether it is above or below a certain threshold. If it's not cold enough, the food in the vending machine might spoil. But you don't need to know the exact temperature. So don't send data that you don't need to. Only send stuff that is meaningful to your application and that will make sense for your M2M deployment in that particular case. If you want more information, please call us. There's the phone number. There's our website. You can find more white papers on that website on various topics. And of course, we're always here to help you. Thanks.